Good afternoon, everybody. So we are here today to discuss the first 1,000 days of life. The first 1,000 days of life are immensely impactful when it comes to an individual's healthcare journey. And because of this, in August 2018, Janssen R&D and Johnson & Johnson Innovation J Labs decided to launch the first 1,000 days Quickfire Challenge. The Quickfire Challenge called on global innovators to send in their best and brightest ideas of how we can serve the needs of the pregnant women and the unborn children and the young babies. Innovators from all over the world submitted their ideas through November for the chance to receive $250,000 in grant awards and mentorship from Johnson & Johnson. And after months of deliberation, we received many submissions. We're excited to announce the winner of that challenge here today. Congratulations to Bloom Life. Bloom Life impressed our panel of reviewers and judges with their vision to truly impact the needs of the prenatal female and how to improve health outcomes of babies. They plan to bring long overdue innovation to better understand pregnancy and the complications of birth. I'd like to please join me in welcoming Eric Dee, the CEO of Bloom Life, to the stage and today's panel to receive his award and describe the company.
Thank you, Kate. And thank you, J&J. As Kate mentioned, I'm Eric Dee. I'm co-founder and CEO of Bloom Life. We're a women's health company developing solutions in prenatal care to try to improve the health of moms and babies. We're thrilled and excited to accept this award and this grant from J&J. It's very exciting to see companies such as J&J that have the depth of experience and the reach that they have to be focused on this stage of life. The fact is that there are a huge amount of unmet needs within prenatal and in early life. And we're just excited to be part of a trend of more companies focusing on bringing long overdue innovation to this world. More specifically what we do is we've been developing remote prenatal care solutions that combine clinical grade wearable devices with data analytics to try to provide better information to moms on her health and the health of her baby, while aggregating data to help doctors earlier predict and manage pregnancy complications. So we've launched our first product on the market last year. We've served thousands of moms throughout the US, and over that time have now aggregated the world's largest physiological data set in pregnancy, and have been using that to identify digital biomarkers that are predictive of things such as an impending preterm birth. So I'm sure we'll have a chance to share more of what we're working on here as part of the panel, but once again, I'd like to thank J&J and all the support that they provided to date, and excited to be collaborating with them on a deeper level moving forward.
So to continue the discussion around the first 1,000 days, I'd like to introduce our other panelists and ask them to join us. First, we have Josh Makower, a partner from NEA. Russell Walters from Johnson & Johnson Consumer. Oliver Shang, the Global Head of Health Technology and Partnerships at Johnson & Johnson, and Naomi Kelman, the President and CEO of Willow. Thank you all for joining us here today. We're looking forward to a great discussion, but before we get going, I'd like to kind of go along the line, starting with Eric. I know you've just introduced yourself briefly, but if you could go through and say what your role is and why you're excited to be here today.
So Eric Dee. Co-founder and CEO of Bloom Life. I have a background, I have a PhD in biomedical engineering. Bloom Life, as I mentioned, is a women's health company developing solutions in prenatal care. And I'm excited to be here because any opportunity to kind of spread greater awareness and information about the unmet needs for expectant moms and their babies is something I always jump at. And I always love sharing what we're working on and the impact we've had to date to really positively impact the lives of expectant moms throughout the country.
I'm Josh Makower. I'm a general partner with New Enterprise Associates, which is a large venture fund. We invest in everything from technology over to healthcare. My background is I'm a physician, engineer, entrepreneur, inventor, and recently joined NEA about 3.5 years ago. Before that, a serial entrepreneur creating multiple companies, one of which is Willow, led by Naomi. And I'm also the co-founder of the Stanford Biodesign Innovation Program and teach at Stanford as well.
I'm Russ Walters. I'm a research fellow at Johnson & Johnson and also part of the team that built Nod, the baby sleep coaching app, along with Russ Devices. And I'm excited to be here to talk about combining health and technology, especially in this baby space. Because if you want to really improve the world, thinking about the first 1,000 days is a really great place to start.
I'm Oliver Shung. I am responsible for partnerships and business development for technology initiatives at J&J across our three main businesses in the consumer space, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. Unlike my esteemed colleagues up here, I'm relatively new to healthcare. I've spent the past 20 years or so in technology across various industries ranging from financial services to transportation to search and advertising. I'm excited to be here to really connect the opportunity to identify some of the greatest needs that we face in humanity with technology to figure out really how to operationalize some of these solutions.
Good morning, and I'm Naomi Kelman. I'm CEO of Willow. Willow is the world's first all-in-one wearable breast pump. Our goal at Willow is to get moms out of supply closets, out of public restrooms, unplugged from the wall. You pop Willow into your bra, and off you go, lead your life. It's really fantastic. It's great to be on a panel like this with so much technology and so much advancement for women. We're a mom-first company, and anything we can all do to support mothers to be successful as women, as moms, that's what Willow's all about.
Thank you so much for your introductions. I always like to say that Johnson & Johnson is humble enough to know that we don't know everything, and the way that we're going to get smarter and the way that we're really going to serve our consumers and our patients is by working with entrepreneurs who are on the cutting edge of things. So instead of maybe talking about Johnson & Johnson first, I'd really like to go to the CEOs, our entrepreneurs, and ask you about the story of your startup and just tell us how you kind of went from the beginning and got here to CES today. Maybe we could start with Bloom Life.
Sure. As I mentioned, I have a background in biomedical engineering. I was previously working at a Belgian-based research company called IMEC that was really one of the leaders in developing mobile health solutions in many different verticals, and got excited about consumer health, and more specifically ended up drilling down into prenatal through my own personal experience, not me obviously being pregnant, but my partner and I's journey to try to have a child. And at the time, we were about 3 years in, had several miscarriages, were in the throes of IVF, and it just didn't make sense that there were so many unanswered questions at this time of life. And after spending a lot of time talking with other parents and moms in particular, and other doctors, we just realized that there was a lot of unanswered questions and unmet needs for people in this area. And pregnancy complications have been on the rise globally, high-risk pregnancies are on the rise, and the biggest challenges in prenatal are poorly addressed, in particular preterm birth. And we felt there was an opportunity to develop new solutions that both provided expectant moms better information about her pregnancy, to reassure, guide healthy choices, and through that relationship to really start aggregating data and to give doctors better tools to better track and manage the health of their moms. And so since that point, which was a few years ago, we have developed a wearable device that allows us to track critical health parameters of maternal and fetal health. The first product was launched onto the market last year, which is around end of pregnancy, third trimester, and helping moms make the decision of whether or not it's time to go, whether or not she's in labor. And so it's a small patch, it's worn on the belly, and we can non-invasively track contractions and automatically track and time these things. And the idea is that we're collecting unique longitudinal data that to this point has been impossible to capture. And as I mentioned, we've collected over 125,000 hours worth of physiological data and have successfully mined this for a digital biomarker that allows us to diagnose labor and predict birth, which doctors didn't even think was possible. And so we have a large clinical study working on that right now that we're validating. We have results in April to be able to share. And moving forward, it's about expanding the platform to cover the entire pregnancy, looking at more aspects of maternal health that are known to be risk factors, as well as adding fetal health in there as well, and really to provide this very comprehensive view of maternal and fetal health, and really try to do some positive impact in a area that affects us all in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you, Eric. Over to you, Naomi, and talk about Willow.
Sure. So I think sometimes when you're starting a company, a small comment can lead to a big dream and a really big idea. You met Josh, who's one of our co-founders of Willow, and his other co-founder is John Chang. And actually, John's wife made a comment to him one day that led into the creation of Willow, which is, hey, have you guys ever thought about reimagining the breast pump? Remember how awful it was with dangling baby bottles hanging from my breasts and plugged into a wall, and what a terrible experience that was? Come on, you guys can probably do something better than that. So that seemingly small comment became a giant inspiration, which has become a giant movement, which has become Willow. We were very fortunate to have two amazing co-founders who are great inventors. I always tell people I sleep well at night because I work with these guys. When we started Willow too, one of the things I think that helped us to be really successful was we started by talking to moms and asking moms, what does your dream pump look like? We kind of know what it doesn't look like, taking your clothes off and dangling baby bottles, but tell us, what is it that you would really love? And moms pretty much said there were two key things. One is, I want my mobility back. I don't want to be plugged into this wall and lose all this time. Give me the ability to walk around. Give me my hands back. And the second thing mom said was time. So much time is spent pumping. For women who pump for a year, I hate to tell you this, ladies, 240 hours are spent in some sort of separate area plugged into a wall. Think of how much time women are giving up to do this superhero thing for their children. So we really set out to design for something that was totally hands-free and gave mom their time back. Now, Oliver, I'm going to ask for your help. So if you can hold this mic near me. All right. So I can show you Willow, because I do need a hand for that, okay? So this is Willow, totally in this bag, right, ladies? Like normally you need a giant bag for that. And this is the whole product, right? So all the pieces you need are here in Willow. And what it is you put it on your breast, put your nursing bra up, and you put your clothes over it, and off you go, completely mobile. The way it works is we have a clear flange. This is our Gen 2.0 product that we're introducing here at CES. It has a clear flange so you can see your nipple oriented. I see the ladies nodding yes. And we have a new quick snap closure. That's it. You're done, right? There's a disposable milk bag that goes inside that enclosure. It has a one-way valve so milk can go in but not come out. And look, ladies and gentlemen and fathers, totally spill-proof, right? We introduced Willow Gen 1.0 in January of last year. We're now 20,000 moms strong, counting on Willow, which is really fantastic. And this is our Generation 2 product that's going to make it even faster and easier for moms to get around. Thank you, Oliver. Appreciate that. Sure.
I'm so impressed by how you've just described your companies, and slightly jealous of the women that get to have children now. Unlike me, I wish that had been around when I had my 3 children. So. Okay. Thanks for sharing the story of how the startup gets going, how you've ended up here at CES. And then I wanted to move to Russ and Josh to talk about, we've heard some things about wellness and prevention. And from your perspective, what you see out in the marketplace, what other areas of opportunity are there?
Oh, sure. There's a ton of opportunity. I mean, just focusing within the realm of the first 1,000 days, both mom and baby, and really the whole family needs a lot of help. And I think that parents are asking, how do we manage the nutrition for our child? How do we manage our sleep, both the parents as well as the child? And then how do we remain calm and secure that everybody's doing the right things? And so I think, there's obviously some examples here on the floor. Willow's an example. And of course, you're starting before the 1,000 days, but another example on the panel of, just sort of the continuum of just providing more information to allow parents to make better decisions. So, I think it's an embryonic field, but a lot of opportunity. And, as we look at various things to invest in at NEA, we're typically looking at disease states which affect a relatively small population, thankfully, for any one particular disease state. But being born, everybody has to go through, and so it's quite common amongst human beings. So therefore, it's a fantastic market to be investing in.
Totally agree. So Russ, what are your thoughts on this 100% market? You can't really go wrong.
Yeah, I agree. And to expand, I think it's interesting to consider the demographics changes that have occurred over the last few years or are occurring other places. It used to be about 40% of moms were first-time moms, and that's increased by about 30% now. So there's more and more first-time moms and sort of less baby expertise out in the world. At the same time, there's more baby expertise within academic circles. The research into development has improved, and there's a giant gap between what is known and then what's actionable out in the field, and how much information and wisdom new parents have. We were just talking before coming up. When you're a new parent, when your first child is 6 days old, you're a 6-day-old parent, and that child does not care you're a 6-day-old parent. The child's expecting expertise and excellence immediately. So it's a thing that we're actively working to help. The Nod, the app that we launched here at CES 2 years ago, we've taken the expertise that exists in the academic clinical space, sort of digitized that logic, and then provided that to parents at 2 in the morning when they otherwise don't have access to care. So moving from sort of the data that's available to actionable advice and wisdom at time of need is a thing we can do a lot more of in the space.
Actionable time and wisdom. I like the way you put that. That actually brings me to the next point, because I think, in days gone past, women would reach out to other women, their parents, to try and get that action and insight. But now we're in this wonderful age of technology, and how can we incorporate that into this stage? So I wanted to hand it over to Oliver, and then maybe go to Josh for your thoughts of incorporation of technology into this era of the first 1,000 days.
Yeah, so a couple of things I've been thinking about through sort of my experience and how to really operationalize some of these ideas are around sort of this notion of focus as well as talent. So putting myself in the shoes of the entrepreneur or the early stage company, I think especially in technology, there is an irresistible tendency to think about one's idea or product or technology very broadly, and to think, this could easily become a platform that can do X, Y, and Z across different categories, across different disease areas, for different populations. And my experience in this is that that idea of having focus around clarity of mission and vision, which is absolutely essential to driving strategy and making prioritized decisions, and ultimately the tactical initiatives is absolutely key. And I would absolutely not discourage entrepreneurs from thinking around how can this be big and eventually become a platform, but especially in the world of healthcare plus technology, where there are additional hurdles with respect to regulatory and things of that nature, that balance really needs to be there. From a talent perspective, I also think a lot about how one blends sort of scientific knowledge and capability with the executional and operational know-how from a technology perspective. And so obviously that will depend on what role technology has to play in your company, but it's not just sort of, algorithmic horsepower to move some of your ideas. To really bring things to market, and Naomi and I were talking about this earlier, there are other areas within technology. For example, how do you market products to an audience today? How do you strike the right types of digital partnerships that require a unique blend of expertise? And so how companies get ahead of that and blend that together, I think, will really position digital health companies very well going forward.
Great, thank you. So Josh, your perspective from working with NEA and also from your experience at Stanford.
Absolutely. I think the way I sort of think about it is in terms of business models and how technologies link into business models, and also how the capacity for interacting with the various data sources that are available. It's sort of those are the layers that I think about. what's exciting about CES, of course, is that this is a conference that focuses a lot on hardware, and you really do need hardware to be able to detect variables, Bloom Life, Willow, et cetera. That's sort of at some point, digital needs to touch human beings, and that's where hardware comes in. But then as we craft solutions, we have to figure out how we get data and information from those points and integrate it into AI-like technology types of solutions. And I think the opportunity or the challenge is to figure out how to dimension those services or products into things that are affordable and that people can access and then understand how to utilize insights from the technology. So, there's many examples here of different cuts at those business models, but that's how I organize it in my mind, is you sort of got a purely digital component, a hardware component, and then the integration of the two provides the insights that parents can use to make better decisions for their kids.
Russ, did you have some comments?
Yeah, just a small piece to add to that. And I think in this space, uniquely in this baby space, one of the best sensors to incorporate and include is the parent. So one of the best things we can use in the world to read the baby is the parent observation, and making sure the sensors we're putting on are additive to that, yeah.
Can I just add
Please do.
From a completely different perspective? I think we also need to recognize, how parents want to receive information, how they want to learn, that the world has dramatically changed. I think, Eric, you were saying you became new parents and it was a mystery, and what were you going to do in the education component? I think, it used to be that you could do television advertising and print advertising and things like that. I think today we have to recognize how moms want to learn, how they want to consume information, how they want to interact with us is really different. At Willow, for example, we have an extensive coaching program, recognizing that when you're a first-time mom, sometimes things can be overwhelming. And so to be able to be there for moms and support her are really important. We can do that on a phone call, of course, but what moms really want are text and chat. We need to be there for her in her real time as she wants to consume and learn and provide that sort of support. And I think we need to recognize we need to morph ourselves as companies to what our consumer and our parents want, instead of trying to push the parents into the old business models that used to exist.
Yeah, and just to build on that one point, I think it's beyond just the consumer need, though. Again, we talk to a lot of doctors. There's a clinical need for this of being, and I think this is where a business like ours could come in, is that doctors don't necessarily have the time to answer all the questions that a parent might have. And so how do you bridge the gap where you're able to deliver clinically accurate, medically sound information to them, but in a manner that's fits into their lives, that's accessible to them when they need it, in a understandable manner. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do as we move forward as well with Bloom Life.
So I love it when panels kind of take on a life of their own and everyone just starts jumping in. This is way more organic and interesting. But to perhaps serve the needs of some of the entrepreneurs out in the audience and thinking about getting that technology out to the public, sometimes it is by working with a larger corporation such as Johnson & Johnson, not just us. So I kind of wanted to go to Oliver and also get the insights of the CEOs of, okay, you've got this amazing product. How do you then maybe take an additional step and start partnering with another company? So maybe first going to Oliver, some thoughts from you on like best practices, suggestions.
Sure. So I think the first thing I would say is going back to that clarity of mission and vision. There's a somewhat subtle distinction between how one can take their idea and work with a company like a J&J or another type of company to realize that vision, but then sort of overstepping that and finding yourself sort of acting what may feel unnatural to satisfy the needs of that partnership. And so I think this is where sort of the underbelly of functional areas like business development can really help, because ultimately what you really want to do is achieve the optimal amount of alignment across mission, around culture, around team, around shared goals. And that actually takes a lot of homework, especially if you're a startup or an early stage company trying to figure out how to leverage a certain type of partnership. And so the work invested in understanding what is my counterparts, what are their real priorities. who are making those decisions. These are admittedly some tactical pieces of feedback that I'm sharing, but I think those are ultimately very important in making sure that, because your time and your energy is very limited, and so how do you maximize that by really understanding how you can efficiently work with another company. And so once that's in place, then I think you're in a position for a true win-win. And maybe the answer that you uncover is there's no partnership to be had. That's actually sometimes a very good outcome. And it's far better to do that than to find yourself ensconced in a relationship that, oh man, how do I get myself out of this?
Maybe I could give you partnership from a slightly different twist perspective, because for us, we're still new and young in our development, so it's a little bit early to have sort of corporate partnerships. But where we've been able to be really successful is create sort of partnerships as we're developing Willow. And what we've been able to do is really inspire others about what we're doing and what we're creating. So for example, the folks that we work with from a manufacturing perspective, they're a world-class operation that know how to make devices like ours and are multinational that's publicly traded. But we've been able to inspire them about what we're creating. And so we get a really large share of voice, well beyond what we deserve as a startup. And that helps us to be able to really develop a world-class product, be able to manufacture it with reliability, be able to make our commitments to our moms. So sometimes inspiring people, not necessarily in partnerships in an M&A sort of way, but to be able to get resources dedicated to a startup to make sure we get out of the gates, that we have high quality products, really great people working on the products. Our manufacturing partnership, I would argue a partnership, is a great example of a little different twist on that.
Thanks, Naomi. So, Eric, your thoughts?
So to be perfectly honest, when working with one of the large companies, I think the most important thing to have is lots and lots of patience. Lots of patience. We've successfully built a lot of partnerships on the clinical side, and there really it's about trying to understand where our needs are, since really everything we're trying to do is deliver clinical grade information into the hands of moms, and so really like working with respected institutes out there that could validate the technology, that you can inspire to see, hey, what could be, and finding your kindred spirits on the clinical side, which we now have thankfully found. And it's so inspiring to us when you find that there's someone out there that sees the same thing you see, and they actually are on the front lines of medicine and want to help you develop that. It really helps to advance the overall message for us. It provides really strong validation to other folks, investors, other partners, the media. And really that's where we focus a lot of our effort today, is really on the clinical side of building those partnerships, validating the technology, and as we move forward, hopefully getting a chance to work more closely with organizations and companies like J&J that have this great reach into the mom and baby space, that have distribution, have all this wealth of knowledge and clinical insights, and how do we collaborate with them to keep advancing our mission forward and theirs as well.
And I might add to that, just to say from the investor side, we're always very enthusiastic about seeing a corporate partner, even as an investor, co-investor, or involved with the company. It does add some level of validation, but also, especially when there's some collaborative relationship where there's information sharing and learning, I think the watch outs are, we always would be concerned if that partnership is a little controlling or limits the exits for that company. But as long as it's sort of open-ended and it's a mutual learning opportunity and really adding value to both parties, then we're very enthusiastic about co-investing with corporate partners.
I appreciate all the insights. So we're coming towards the end of the session, and before we get a brief update on what's going on with Mum and Baby and the Johnson & Johnson side of the business, I wanted to go to each one of our experts here and say, out of everything that you've seen at CES, what do you think is the most exciting and inspiring? Because you're experts in your own right, so Naomi's already got there. But maybe if we could start with Eric, what's the most exciting thing you've seen at CES?
I just flew in this morning, and I just literally got into the convention hall today, so I can't really say a whole bunch that's out there yet. I mean, in general, I just get excited to see more and more companies moving into this space. When we first started, we came to the Baby Tech Summit in year one, and it was funny because we actually called it the Baby Ghetto, because they put us in a whole separate area outside of the main floor, and it was like this ragtag group of people, and occasionally random people would walk in and like, is this part of CES? So it's been great to see not only events that are dedicated to the topic, but a lot more companies moving in. More investment dollars moving in, more corporate dollars moving in. So in general, I think it's a great validation for the overall market in general. And I think there's some great companies. Happy's Baby and Snoo is one of my favorites out there. So I see Harvey up there, so a little shout out. So yeah, it's just great to see as much interest in mom and baby as there is.
Awesome. Okay, so removal of the baby ghetto from CES, that's the most exciting thing. So moving on to Josh.
Oh, sure. Well, obviously, I think, as you just mentioned, it's great to see so much more innovation in this space in particular around baby, and I see it being much more sophisticated. I've seen, we've tracked a number of companies here, both in the breastfeeding and feeding space, but broader than that, just baby health, awareness of monitoring other important health variables for baby that are relevant to parent, and managing baby's health overall, food input, output, etc. I think that it is evolving, and it is becoming much more mature, and I think it's getting the attention of the larger companies to realize that this is actually becoming a real space now.
Yeah, it really is. So Russ, what have you seen?
Yeah, it's really great to see this baby health tech move away from just tech that's applied to health a little bit, and to really embrace the health side, which I think is reflected in this panel. It's a hard bridge to gap between technology and clinical expertise, but there's a lot of value in doing that. I think it's a thing that's happening more so and will continue, and that's a lot of positives.
So Oliver, with your vast experience in tech, what would you say?
My vast experience in tech would counsel me to not make any predictions, because I would be flat out wrong. I think it would be hard-pressed to look around and not be impressed by a lot of the technology that's out here. What I tend to think about is, what do I think is on the cusp of really reaching adoption at scale? And so things that may have been in development that I think are on the verge of legitimate breakout. And I think about sort of the high quality medical grade level of sensors being there. And so that's not necessarily just about the technology. That's about marrying that with companies and people that really think about sort of human-centered design to sort of make those technologies actually usable and at scale. And so I think that's going to unleash a large number of opportunities in baby and beyond.
Thanks, Oliver. So over to Naomi. I'm not sure why I need to ask you that question, but...
So we were in the baby ghetto, actually right across from Eric a couple of years ago. And I think what excites me about this CES is to see that companies like Eric's, companies like ours are still here. It's not unusual as an entrepreneur and as a startup. Not everybody makes it. And I think it says a lot about what parents are looking for, what moms are looking for, that, we're on generation 2 of our product. Eric's company is continuing to evolve. We're also big fans of, and we're friends with Owlet, who's introducing a couple products here, the Nod team as well. I think it says a lot that there's a lot of traction and a lot of ongoing usage. As I said, we're 20,000 moms strong. I think that says a lot, and now we're out of the ghetto together, right? Yeah.
Congratulations on that. Okay, so to wrap up the session, I'd like to come back to Russ and Oliver to give some updates on what's going on with Johnson & Johnson and our mom and baby franchise.
I'll start briefly and then come back maybe. So I think what you're seeing here on the panel is a good indication of a lot of sort of where we're headed and what it is we're interested to do within Johnson & Johnson. I think likely we'll be respectfully humbly partnering with startups are making great devices, and we'll continue to do that, I hope. And also helping to connect the technology more so into the healthcare system. We have lots of deep roots across lots of clinicians and lots of spaces broadly across healthcare, and helping to bring technology in tighter connection with healthcare will be a thing that we'll help do with these startup partners.
And I'll add a few things that may be a little more mom-centric. I think, obviously, it really starts with trying to identify what are the biggest areas of need and how are we uniquely suited to try to tackle some of these. From a technology perspective, I think some of the themes that Naomi hit on earlier around how do we understand and meet the needs around anxiety and peace of mind for moms going through the pregnancy experience, as well as the first 1,000 days of life is super critical, and how do we leverage digital solutions on top of physical products to really help address that will be a continued area of focus. I think another area I would mention is around more on the wellness side and thinking through what are some of the health areas that are demonstrated areas that will really impact health of baby, that we can hopefully nip in the bud and identify, intercept, ultimately prevent. And so areas like obesity, for example, will be hugely critical there. The last thing I'll just mention is we're going to continue to think about how to deliver this type of value and information, leveraging technology for moms in the developing world. And so we've done quite a bit there to develop and deliver things like maternal health information in remote areas that will continue to be a big area of focus.
Thanks so much for the update. So in closing, I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for your attention. I'd like to thank everyone on the panel for sharing your thoughts on the first 1,000 days. And finally, congratulate again Bloom Life for winning our Quickfire Challenge. Thanks.